Hello, welcome to the channel. I'm Claire Francis. I'm back after a short break, as many of you will know. I have just been on holiday. I've just come back from a cruise, and that's what I wanted to deal with today. So if you're going on a Northern European holiday, particularly a cruise, it can be very confusing what to pack because you really don't know what the weather's going to be like. And also, if you haven't been on many cruises before, you might not know what's expected of you on the cruise boat itself, and the dressing up aspect in the evenings. So there's a lot to consider, and I want to take you through what I do when I pack for a cruise like this and help you feel a little bit more confident and give you a little bit of a heads up as to what sort of thing you'll need. So if that sounds interesting, please keep watching. So I've just got back on P&O Aurora from a UK cruise. So we went all the way around the UK, from starting on the south coast, Southampton, Plymouth, up round to Southern Ireland, then up to Liverpool, Belfast, Glasgow, right up to the Orkney Islands, and then back down the east coast to Edinburgh, Edinburgh and Newcastle, and then back down to Southampton. So we had a real tour all around our beautiful UK, and very interesting. But weather can be very difficult to predict, can't it? In fact, one of the main considerations when you even think about your packing is the sort of weather conditions that you could meet. So that's what I want to talk about firstly. Now, really, you need to be prepared for anything and everything. When we started off the cruise in southern England, there was a bit of a heat wave going on. It was very hot, but by the time we got midway up the west coast, it was starting to cool off a bit, and we had some lovely, pleasant, cooler weather, a little bit of rain in the north of Scotland, and then back to some slightly warmer weather when we came back. So we had a bit of everything. Luckily, we didn't come across any really bad storms, but there's a chance at any time of year you could meet that. You could meet high seas, high winds, lots of rainfall. So the first thing we're going to look at is outerwear. And one thing I would say you definitely need is some sort of waterproof. Now, I took this fairly light waterproof MAC, which I did use on several occasions. If your activity level on holiday is going to be, high, and you're going to be doing lots of trekking and hiking and walking up mountains and things, you might need something more than this, a real weatherproof type of warmer jacket. But this was perfect for the sort of thing that we were doing. So that's the first thing you need to consider. My partner also took an umbrella with us because we did use that on one or two occasions. So, do think it could well rain. It could well be a bit chilly as well. So something like a sweatshirt is useful. I did pack a sweatshirt or a hoodie, something like that would be really good. And I also took another lighter jacket because on the days where it's not actually raining, but it's a little bit chillier, you might want to have something, or something a little bit smarter that you can go around in. So I took my linen blend blazer from M&S. So that was the outerwear. Now, I also took a pair of sturdy trainers, which I didn't really need. I could have got away with my lighter trainers. I'll talk about footwear a little bit later. But you do need to consider that even though it might be really hot in the south of England, north of France, well, the whole of Europe at the moment, southern Europe and mid-Europe is very hot. Up north, it can be a completely different category. If you're going somewhere like the Fjords, I've been on a fjord cruise, but I also have many friends who've done cruises, and we've all had a mixed range of opinions about what the weather was. And to be honest, it seems to be that one day it can be raining, the next day it can be sunny, then you get another day of grey cloud, then another day of rain, then a day of sun. So, it can really be anything. I've been on a Baltic cruise where it was lovely and hot for nearly the whole entire cruise a few years ago, but they said that was quite unusual. Didn't see any rain there. So, really you need to be prepared for everything. But layers are very useful, hence the linen jacket. Also, another item I like to take is a linen shirt. And, just some basic t-shirts and tops and things. Neutral colours will go with obviously everything, so that's helpful. But this is useful because it can be worn over trousers and things, but it can also be worn as a layering piece under other items, and it can be worn as a light cover-up over summer dresses. So don't underestimate the power of a linen shirt there. I did also take a cardigan as well, and I chose a cream one because that sort of will go with a lot of the other items I'm taking, as you'll see. So a couple of warmer layers is useful, but maybe keep the colours lighter if possible, navy possibly, but obviously your creams and your whites, and that is good. And then a couple of bottoms. Now I did take this pair of trousers. They're a sort of loose, soft touch jersey type filled trouser. I also took a pair of linen trousers and a third pair I'm going to show you in a minute. If you like your shorts, you might want to take some shorts instead of one of the pairs of trousers. But then you've got, you know, some sort of cover up things that mean if it's a little bit cooler and windier, you're not completely exposed, but you've still got sort of lightish colours, fairly light fabrics. So that's the sort of thing it's useful when you're going on trips. If it's sunny, you can go to, later on I'm going to talk to you about dresses and things. You could wear one of the day dresses, but we're thinking about the sort of cooler parts of the ship when we're talking about these things. Okay, will you need swimwear? Well, that will depend on you personally. There were some people sunbathing by the pools. There is an indoor pool on Aurora, so there were people there sitting in their swimming gear and things. However, I did take a swimming costume and one of my cover-ups here. In fact, I took 2 swimsuits, I think. I didn't actually use them. Now, so if you like to be indoors in the indoor pool, you know, sort of lying around in your swimwear, that's great. There were a few afternoons where it was hot enough to sunbathe and go in the pool on the outer decks, but we didn't actually have time to do that really. We just in the end sat out, you know, I sat out in my sundresses and just did my sort of chest and my arms really, or you could sit out in a pair of shorts and a top or whatever. So you don't necessarily need swimwear, but I would advise you take it, because if it does turn out that you've got a few really hot days, you regret not having it. When you're on some of the bigger family ships like Avia and Iona, it's much harder to get to the pools because you've got children and that tend to take over, teenagers take over the jacuzzis, and you're confined to one tiny little adults only pool, which there isn't really space for when you've got 5,000 people on board. However, on Aurora there's under 2,000, and you know there was plenty of deck area for sunbathing and swimming and things if you wanted to do that. So definitely take your swimwear. You may or may not get much use out of it, but I would definitely take a couple of costumes and at least 1 cover up, if not 2. And if you're the sort of person that likes sunbathing, you may want to take more. Otherwise in the day, now I'm going to show you here, this next category are things you can wear in the day if you want to look a little bit smarter, a little bit more summery, feminine, elevated, but also work well on these sort of semi-formal or casual nights on the ship. So, you know, dresses and things. So, well, first of all, actually, I've got a skirt. I did actually regret not taking this skirt. I took a white linen one, but it was so creased up, I didn't really want to get around, I didn't iron it, and it needed a good iron, so I actually wished I'd taken this one. And I also take a sort of slightly more summery sort of holiday vibe pair of linen trousers as well, which means I can put this with a white or a black top and create a sort of co-ord thing going on there. So they're useful pieces. And then summer dresses. So I did take a selection of 4, maybe 5 summer dresses. I took these 2, for example. I did wear them both. I wore them in the evening, on the casual evenings actually. And another one, a linen dress. This is good for daytime. I do like my little cover-ups as well. So this white crochet cover-up was really useful. And I've also got a black little bolero that I wear as well, which again goes with lots of the other things. So the black and the white I found really useful. And when you're on a ship, it's really nice in the evenings when you want to just get a bit of fresh air and go for a stroll out on deck. You know, the men are offering in shirts or even jackets and things as well. And if we're just in a little strappy dress, it can be quite chilly. So it's really nice to have a little cover up. Also, if you're a lady that doesn't really like showing your upper arms, it's really nice to have a little crochet top or a you know, bolero cardigan, something like that. I found really useful. Going on to formal wear now every cruise line is different in terms of formality. A lot of the cruise lines, particularly since COVID, have gone more casual and you don't have to dress up quite as much. Cunard are a bit more dressier, I know, and but again, I don't know if they've changed the last few years because I haven't been on that line recently. But P&O certainly on the big family boats, I would say it's a little bit more casual. There's usually 1 celebration night or black tie night every week. On Aurora, there are actually still 2 celebration nights a week. So we actually had 4 to deal with, and I probably didn't have quite enough things. There were other things in my wardrobe I could have taken. But I do always wear my black long dress. I always take this and I wear it at least 1 black tie night. And also I wish I'd taken this dress. because although it is, you know, it's a nice bright, slightly more summery colour, but it's got the long sleeves. But in some of the ports and some of the places we were, it's quite appropriate to wear a longer sleeve dress. So I probably would take a couple of nicer dresses for formal nights. Maybe this is another one I like to take, particularly on more hotter summer holidays. Just if you want a bit of colour and a bit of sort of fun, this is quite a nice, more dressed up dress. I actually, though, wish I had taken a little bit more in terms of the sort of black sparkly wear. In fact, I could have got away with wearing my silver sparkly set that I bought at Christmas, and I wish actually I'd taken this little cardigan with the embellishment, because that would have made a really nice outfit with this skirt. I did actually take it away on an earlier cruise, but thought, because this is a summer cruise, it might look a bit wintry. But to be honest, especially because it was mainly older cruisers, I would say, and a lot of them do dress up quite a lot on the formal nights in something quite, you know, black and sparkly, or, you know, something a little bit more elevated, a little bit more akin to what you'd wear at a Christmas party. So there is a lot of scope there. If you don't want to dress up at all, and you don't want to take those sort of clothes, it means you will be restricted from eating from certain areas. You'll only be able to go, for example, to the buffet or one of the very casual restaurants. You won't be able to go to the main dining rooms and things. They do have a black tie sort of formal dress code, which involves wearing, men, you know, some sort of suit jacket and tie, and often a proper DJ. And then women can wear, you know, a smart dress, or, you know, cocktail dress. Or one thing you do need to be careful of, ladies, especially as I know some of you that watch my channel, you are that little bit older, and be careful about long dresses and long things on a cruise boat, because you've got a lot of steps to negotiate, quite a lot of walking backwards and forwards, and you don't want to be tripping up over long hems. Same applies to heels. I think only the very youngest of people tend to wear heels on a cruise now. I think you see the little kitten heels or the little strappy sandals, but really I would say, you know, leave your heels at home, really, to be honest, unless you're very good at walking in them and you know you're very fit and lively and you're not going to trip up or anything. That's up to you. So again, it's sort of personal choice with all this, what you decide to take. So that was sort of the main things I took, and then let's go on to sort of accessories and shoes and things. So as I said, please think about the activity level, what you're doing activity wise, think about where you're going, think about possible weather conditions, and then try and stick to neutral colours wherever you can for separate, so that they all sort of mix and match. And then you can bring a few more colourful dresses and pieces for the evening and things like that, if that's what you like. Let's talk about accessories and things like, well, shoes first of all. So I always take my gold shoes and my gold clutch bag, because they go with all the evening wear, and you can just elevate some of the day dresses just by wearing these. I also often take my little black kitten heels, again, because they go with everything. So those are the sort of shoes I wear in the evening. However, perfectly fine to wear a flat pair of shoes. Now these can double up for day and evening, particularly as they're walking around a ship with lots of steps, lots of walking around there is usually on cruise boats. You might find you're more comfortable in something like that. And then daytime, well, again, depending on your activity level. Now, if you're doing hiking and things like that, you're going to need a sturdy pair of walking shoes or walking trainers. But I actually took my Vivea ones and they were fine. However, if it had rained a lot, I would have been a little bit stuck, because they have got holes in them. So again, you do need to think about how much outdoor sort of activity you're doing, and whether you need a sturdy pair of shoes and a light pair of trainers, possibly, you know, a white pair that will go with dresses and things. And a pair of ordinary daytime sandals obviously is useful. I think I took these ones, which actually go with my little day bag. So this was quite a good combination, wearing the mules and that little crossbody bag, which means you've got your, you know, your cruise card and your passport and things secure in the bag. I wouldn't put that just in an open day bag. So that's some of the items I took there. As well as that, I would take a larger day bag. So this one or this one, something like that. This has got a zip at the top, which means it's reasonably secure. This one has a little zipped pouch inside that's attached to the bag, so you can put your money and your passport and things in there and that won't be stolen. So something like that. Again, if you're more adventurous and you're doing lots of trekking up mountains and things, you might need to take a backpack. you might find that easier. So again, you've got to just look at what you're doing on your cruise, what trips you plan to do, what your activity levels are. It's very different just strolling around a little town in Scotland to actually going on a hike around the mountains or whatever. So just appropriate clothing, think about what you're doing. But my main message really is be prepared for any weather conditions. So that's something you need to think about. Now on a cruise ship, you can take a lot of luggage. So this is where people fall down, because you tend to end up taking everything. But what I did was I put everything out on the rail, and then I tried to have a look at what went with what, and tried to make sure that things like, you know, my tops and trousers and that would all sort of intermatch with each other as much as possible. But it's not so important if you're going on a longer cruise, or you're going on a cruise full stop, because you can take the luggage. I mean, I think you can take any number of cases, but every cruise line varies a little bit, so you will have to look at the details. Now, I normally take enough to last me sort of 8 to 9 days. We were actually on a 16-night cruise, because I always do some washing in between. However, somebody did point out to me when I did a video last year about cruising that not all ships have washing facilities, laundry facilities. So again, check with your own cruise line, but a lot of cruise lines do have a washroom there that's free. I always take a little pot with a couple of my washing tablets and things like that in, just so I don't have to worry about trying to buy it, although you can often buy it on the ship. And then I do a wash. You know, obviously with underwear and things like that, it's difficult to take 16 pairs of everything, knickers and things like that. So I tend to take sort of 8 or 9, and then I do a wash in the middle, and that worked out fine. So that's a really good solution, meaning you don't have to feel you need, you know, 16 different outfits because you're doing a 16-night trip or whatever. So, and I did find it's got a lot more relaxed now. I don't think anyone's going to judge you if you've worn something 2 or 3 times and you're still wearing it later in the cruise. It's just not like that as much on the normal cruise lines anymore. I think it's a little bit more laid back, and you can wear what you want really in comfort, you know, and not worry too much about it. But bear in mind, a lot of people do go on cruises because they like the formal element, and it is a little bit disappointing if you're on a formal night and everyone's dressed up beautifully, and then in the same bar areas people come in and they've just got a t-shirt on shorts or something. Some cruise lines will definitely tell you off and tell you to go away. Others try to be a bit flexible, but I know it does upset particularly some of the older cruisers if people don't adhere to the restrictions. And there is always somewhere on the ship you can go where you don't have to be dressed up. So try and abide by those rules if you can. It's very confusing when you go for the first time on a cruise, but it does get easier once you know the cruise line and you know what you can do. They often all work on an app now, so you have an app on your phone and then you can book various things. Now, I am going to show you more about my cruise. I'm not sure if I'm going to do that at the end of this video this week, or I might do it as a separate video. I'll see how long this one's been. So for my regular viewers, I will show you a little bit more about what I did and wore and where I went on the cruise. But at the moment, I'm going to leave it like that. I've also not mentioned, obviously, other necessities, like you need a hat of some sort, preferably one that won't blow off because it gets very windy on the decks of cruise ships. And as I said, an umbrella, that sort of thing. Don't forget things like belts. If you've got an item that needs a belt, make sure you've got that with you, and appropriate underwear for the dresses you've got and things like that. You might need a strapless bra or whatever, or some sort of shapewear if you've got a tight fitting dress. So I'm not talking about all those extra things, but hopefully that's given you sort of some idea of the sort of thing you can expect and what sort of thing you can do to pack. So I hope you've enjoyed that. So please let me know if I've missed anything out, anything essential, that would be good. And nice to hear your comments about your cruise experiences. Also, to my subscribers and regular viewers, thank you so much, people who've subscribed recently. I did actually get to my 2,000, which made me very happy, and I went away and had my break feeling that I know I'd achieved something and it was worthwhile doing it. So I'm really glad about that. And I think most of those people have stayed while I've had my break, so thank you for that. And just one other thing to say, I met a lovely lady in Wimborne, actually in Dorset, who asked me if I was Claire Francis from my channel, and we had a little chat, and she said she always watches and she always likes my video. So thank you to that lady who came up to me. It did make my day a little bit. And if you do ever see me out and about, yeah, please come up and say hello. I'd love to talk to you. Thank you so much for watching today. Hope you found the video useful. I think I'm going to tell you more about my personal experience of my cruise in another video. So I'm going to leave it there for today and say hope you have a good week. And once again, hope you managed to get through the heat wave. I can't tell you how happy I was to be away from the heat when we went on our cruise. So I'm back to it now, but hopefully there won't be too many more this summer. It just drains all my energy and I find it really difficult to do other things when it's this hot. So I'm hoping it'll be a little bit cooler by the next time I speak to you. So hope you all have a good week anyway, and I look forward to seeing you next week. Goodbye.